This is, of course, the infamous Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES for short, released back in 1985, and it was Nintendo's first jump, at least here in the United States, to the home console market. So, of course, before that, they had done some arcade games, which were actually some of the first games on this console. They were just some arcade ports like Donkey Kong and Mario Bros. So, this right here is the controller it released with. It's pretty basic. It only has a D-pad, select and start, and B and A button, but I mean, it does the trick for the games, of course, on the system. And some people complain about the controller, but personally, I think it's pretty comfortable. I think it's small enough that the sharp edges don't really bug me too much. So there were some other special controllers released too. There's a dog bone style that they released later on, and that one's more rounded, kind of similar to an SNES controller. Of course, they had stuff like the NES Zapper for some light gun games. So, yeah, I mean, this thing has some legendary games. Stuff like Super Mario Bros. This copy here also has, of course, Duck Hunt. And, I mean, you had stuff like Tetris. This version of Tetris is still played quite a bit today. So, you also had games like Contra, of course, Metroid, Legend of Zelda. It's where a lot of very popular game series had their first game. So, you of course had some two-player games, as you can see here. There is a second controller port. And so, the way you insert the cartridge is pretty interesting. So, of course, take your game here, slide it in like so, and click down. Now, you actually don't even have to click down. It's kind of just more a feature. And then, of course, close the door, and it's got that old plastic squeak. But, yeah, I mean, today, finding the working one is kind of difficult. The pins do wear down over time, and a lot of that is because of the system that you push down on. It wears out the pins for the cartridge slot, so just keep that in mind. You may have to replace them. They're pretty cheap. They're only like $10 on Amazon, and it's not too difficult. It's only a couple screws. So just keep that in mind if you're looking for one of these right now. So, of course, the games are all awesome. So if you don't want the hassle of having to potentially replace the pins, it's really not that big of a deal. But if you don't want to, you can play a lot of these games on Switch, some of the most popular ones. And yeah, I mean, if you have Switch Online, it's only $20 a year for pretty much the basic bundle. So if you have that, then you can play a lot of great NES games on there. So that is one way to play them. If you don't want the actual console itself, personally, I really like the physical editions of stuff. So, I like going for the consoles and the physical games if I can. But the Switch is another option out there. Unfortunately, I would also recommend the Wii U and 3DS, but you can't buy games on the eShop anymore, which is unfortunate because they had an amazing library of games you could purchase digitally on there. So, how well does the NES hold up today? I think that the games they hold up pretty well. I mean, they are pretty challenging, but if you get past that, there are some great classics on this thing. And I think it's one of the most important consoles ever made because it pretty much not single-handedly, but kind of saved the console / video game industry at the time. There were just way too many things coming out. Atari had so many games released, and it was kind of just, what do I buy? What's good? What's not so good? Then Nintendo released this, and yeah, people were wanting to play Nintendo for stuff like Mario Bros. So it's really brought the attention back to video games, and it's an amazing console. And if you're willing to maybe replace the pins, I'd say absolutely pick it up today.